Brought to you by BedroomBattlefields.com. This is the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. This is episode 99, believe it or not. And for this episode, I invited Dan of Paint All the Minis onto the show. Paint All the Minis is a podcast that when I was getting back into the hobby, sort of 2018-ish, it was a show that I discovered, and it was just incredible for inspiring me, for pointing me in the direction of so many different non-GW avenues of this hobby, you know, in terms of game systems, miniatures, paint ranges, all that sort of stuff. I really enjoyed Dan's show. I still do to this day, even though it's not currently active. But Dan's gone on to become a really good friend, and you know, we've worked on a lot together over the years, as well as just kept in touch and had a decent bit of banter as well. So Dan was kind enough to agree to come on the show and have a wee chin wag. Let's dive into it right now, and then we'll catch up on the other end. I've got a few wee updates to pass on to you as well. It's long overdue us having a wee chat on the podcast, isn't it? We kind of chat away on Discord intermittently, but you've not been putting your own podcast episodes out recently, so I've missed your dulcet tones.
Yeah, it's a strange one. We'll kind of go over that a little bit later, I guess, but it's always good to find an excuse to chat. I always miss chatting to you, so it always seems to be like when we're recording a podcast, we get a chance to talk ourselves, so it's always good. I always enjoy speaking to you, but you were talking about your a big landmark birthday, right? You turned 40, just gone?
Yeah, 40, so I'm swiftly losing my memory, my eyesight, my bladder control, you know, all those sorts of good things. So
how does hobbying at 40 feel? So how many years is it in total you've been kind of geeking, and how does it feel at 40 compared to any other time in your life? Any different?
That's a good question. So would I have been like maybe 9 at the absolute earliest, and then through to about 15 maybe, and then away until I was certainly in my mid to late 30s. So it's a few years in total. I don't know if it's quite past 50% of my life. It possibly is, but I could see myself sticking with it through till death now, which probably won't be very long. So
because you're Scottish, being Scottish, what's the average lifespan in Scotland's what, like 43?
I think I'm over it now, so I'm considered like I'm in a blue zone. So have you turned 40 yet?
No, I was asking. Yeah, I'm December, so I'm 40 in December, mate.
So that'll be good.
So yeah, we are of an age, mate, eh?
Yeah. Oh, we're old school. Yeah. So have you got anything hobby related on the old birthday list?
No. It's kind of like the boring gamer, that anything I kind of want to buy, I could potentially buy, but that sounds great. But I don't really buy much stuff. Not really even buying much stuff for ages. Not that I'm not hobbying and not that I'm not playing, but you know, we all just have a bunch of stuff that we already have. So I've just been doing that. But no, nothing for 40 really. And I couldn't even think of something. I don't know, like, could you think of something if you were looking for like a big Prezi, you know, asking people to buy you whatever? Like, is there something hobby related that you'd ask people to kind of sort you out with?
Yeah, no, there was definitely stuff I would ask for, but nobody asked. So
what would you get? Go on, I'm asking. I'm not going to buy it, but I'll ask. What would you get? What would you ask for?
So there were a couple of things. Like, I really want the book that was it Robin Dews, the ex-White Dwarf editor, had made.
Yeah.
It was about like the history of Games Workshop and that. I think it's 2 books actually. So I'm really keen to get that. And there was a couple of different just wee sets or wee bits and pieces of terrain that I definitely could have made a wee list. But like I say, nobody asked, so I didn't bother.
Oh, mate. What terrain stuff? Like, and what terrain stuff would you get?
Well, I ended up getting it in the end anyway. So I got some.
Screw you guys! I'll get it myself.
Yeah, I'm just buying it. So I'm really into 15mm just now. So I've got fantasy buildings for that. So it's almost like a little. I wouldn't call it a village. It's a hamlet certainly. So there was that, and I think the last actual miniatures that I bought as well, mainly 15mm stuff.
Okay.
So the good thing is now there's really nothing out there that I want to get. I'm pretty happy with what I've got. That's not to say that I don't pick stuff up now and then, but because I'm not visibly exposed to all the feeds and the Kickstarters, and that I just don't see any of it. So that stops me getting too distracted or tempted by that stuff. So it saves the wallet a wee bit, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's interesting. And so you've not suddenly got excited about Napoleonics when you turn 40?
No, I think I need another maybe 30 years before that happens. So.
That's cool. Let's talk about fantasy stuff a little bit later. But yeah, like I don't know. Like I'm 40 this year, hobbied as an adult only, really. I guess I got a little bit more comfortable with it. Still don't really talk to anyone else about it, really. Not because I don't want to, just because I just don't really feel the need to. But yeah, I kind of wonder if people kind of hit 40, because you say, do you feel like you're getting towards, or you've had some sort of midlife crisis? Because people talk about that, right? They talk about midlife crises, right, where they start to try and be young again. They start to, maybe go and get a sports car, or maybe do something. You're not feeling any of those feelings at all.
No, absolutely not.
No,
Absolutely
no.
not. I reckon the other way, like I'm going into Matalan buying myself a nice pair of comfortable trousers and that. So I'm definitely not going the let's get a young bird route. Not that I could, but
because I do wonder if some people might shun hobbying because they think, oh no, it goes through like a second wave of not cool. I don't know, because it's like when you're trying to maybe grasp your youth again. I don't know. It's maybe I've never really thought about that until literally now. But yeah, maybe people do gaming, people do some hobbying, but then they're like, no. It's like it's not cool anymore again, and then they leave it by the wayside. I don't know, but yeah, man, how do you feel in general being an older chap? You embrace it, you like it, you don't mind it. Do you miss being younger?
No, I don't give it a lot of thought, to be quite honest with you. I don't really think about it. Like, especially having a toddler around, I think to a degree that kind of keeps you quite young in spirit. And I've never felt like I was particularly mature or grown up anyway. So I am probably the most immature person in the house, even though the kid's 3. So
nice.
What about, like, out your way? If I remember correctly, you were doing pretty well getting regular games in and stuff like that. Are you still able to do that?
Yeah, man. So this death by Memoir 44 has been occurring for probably about 9 months now. It's probably about 9 months where I've played at least 4 games of Memoir 44 each week for about 9 months. So I'd hate to think how many games that is. So play some of them live, but the majority, I would say, is on online. Like play by email. I used to put in the old school newspapers. You used to be able to play chess. You used to send a postcard into the nutpaper, and it would do like a chess move. It's kind of like that, but more modern. I forget the name of the website. It's maybe Tabletopia or something like that, right? And you can play Memoir 44. You can play a whole bunch of board games, but you move, and then it sends an email to your mate saying, "Oh, Dan's made a move," and then he makes a move. And there's a guy, I'd never spoken to this guy. I don't know who he is. I don't know how I started playing with him, but it's just a fella from Poland, I think it is. He's got a Polish flag. And we've just been playing like relentless Memoir 44 for about 9 months, mate. It's crazy. I tried to engage him in conversation like twice and just never got a response. I was like, oh, okay.
It's just all business.
Well, yeah. The first time I wrote it in English, just saying, you're right, mate. This was after about 20 games, 25 games deep or something. I messaged him saying, right, mate, how's it going? I just really appreciate the games, because he's like really reliable. Like he never sacks me off. He's always pretty reliable. Like, and he's always accepted like new games and stuff. But that didn't go down very well. That was like a turd in the swimming pool. He didn't respond to that one at all. So then I left it another 20 games. And then, mate, this is the lengths that I go to for friendship. I translated a little message into Polish and sent it to him. And again, just no response. Just no response at all. So yeah, I don't think he's interested in the light chit chat. I think he just wants the dice rolls. So yeah, I've been playing a whole bunch of Memoir 44. All of the base missions, or like a lot of the expansion ones. So like, I'm not saying I'm any good, but I'm like definitely expert level in Memoir 44. So that's been really cool. That's been really interesting. And also the start of this year for me. And I say start this year, I mean from August, because I run the school years. A fella moved. I kind of been speaking to this fella for a while online, and then he moved down to my city from wherever he was. And so I've been picking up regular games each week for the last kind of 7 weeks. Started playing regular games of A Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game again, which is awesome. So I've been able to do a few demo games just to catch up with it. I kind of maintain demo forces for games that I really like. So I've got one for A Song of Ice and Fire. I've got one for Bolt Action. I've got one for what else? Bolt Action, Song of Ice, Star Wars Legion. So there's like 3 main tabletop games that I like to play: Star Wars Legion, Song of Ice and Fire, and Bolt Action. So I kind of maintain demo forces. So he moved down and he was like not sure about what he wanted to play. So I was like, why don't we play some of Song of Ice and Fire? So I had a couple of demo games. He seemed to really like it. He's picked up his own faction now, and he's just had our 3rd game with his new faction just this morning. So that's really cool. So I'm really enjoying that. It's a game that I really like. It's a game that I think is really fun. Playing regularly for the last 7 weeks, physically playing online Memoir 44 since time began. But yeah, that's basically where I'm at right now. Yeah.
You've been in the hobby quite a while now, haven't you? Like, was it like 2015, 16 or that you started playing with men?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So 2015, 16, I think I mentioned it in a show that we had previously, kind of like just looking for a different hobby. Can't remember why or how I thought of obviously Warhammer 40k, because that's everyone. But yeah. So never stopped. Had a little bit of a hiatus when the kids were, not necessarily a hiatus, but slowed down a lot when the kids were younger. When you got 2 young children in nappies and diapers, whatever you want to call them, it gets a lot harder. But yeah, never stopped. Just kind of slowed down a little bit. So it's really nice that the children are older now. And it's really cool to kind of get back into that regular swing of weekly games, and I'm starting to look forward to like Saturday. Usually play Saturday mornings, so I'm quite looking forward to Saturday mornings coming around again. Playing. It's awesome. It's really cool.
What would you say, like, in that? I mean, you're maybe kicking on for 10 years now. Like, what do you feel's changed for you in the hobby, like in terms of what you do or what your ethos is, or anything like that?
I think we all it's like a relationship, innit? It's like a romantic relationship. It's like when you first start out, everything's amazing, everything's new. You want to taste all the fruit. You want to get involved in everything, right? That's like a natural kind of honeymoon period. And then kind of the dark middle days, what they call it in the UK, they call it like the 7-year itch. There's that thing in Scotland, the 7-year itch. You kind of, you've tried lots of things. Yeah. You played a lot, you tried a lot, you've had a lot of successes, you maybe met some friends, you've had some unsuccessful things where someone's maybe a bit of a douchebag to you or something. But for me, I think I mentioned it just a little bit before. I'm just buying significantly less, and I'm very comfortable with that. Because I've got my paint, I've got my brushes, I've got my little guys. I know what games I like. I know what games I want to play, and I'm very less. What's the word? Like, I'm not as easily led by people into game systems that I don't necessarily want to get involved in. Does that kind of make sense? Like, so this new guy I'm playing with is a really great guy. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's still in a different part of the hobby than me, where he's keen to buy new stuff. And I don't want to be like a douchebag to him by saying like, no, don't do that, you don't need that. I don't want to be like that. Like, 'cause if he wants to taste the fruit, man, that's fine. But it's like I've had to start that relationship with this guy very strongly, where it's like, I like these games. I want to play these games. And if you want to play those games too, or at least try them, fantastic. But I don't really want to buy a new game system. And so it's hard because you got to get that balance, because I don't want to be like kiboshing all of his enthusiasm, but then equally I don't want to be buying rule sets and painting up a whole new bunch of minis and spending loads of money when I don't necessarily know if I'd like the game. So I feel really good with where I am in the hobby right now. And I guess that only comes with experience, and it only comes with time. It's like I know the sort of things that I like. I know the sort of things that I don't like. I've been the FOMO guy for a little bit, and I've got to get on that. I've got to get that piece of train. I've got to get that piece of train, because if I don't get that piece of train now, when I do want it, it might not be there. And I'm sure you felt that as well. But I'm very happily over that, and I don't think I'm ever going to go back to those times. So in terms of how I feel really good, feel really strong, feel really positive about it all. Like I'm just smashing the batch paints at the moment. I guess we'll talk about painting stuff a little bit later, but just really enjoying stuff. And I found that learning how to say no, and this happened a long time ago, a good few years ago, but it's really, the benefit of it's really positive now. It's just like, yeah, just not feeling rushed, not feeling hurried, not feeling under pressure in any way, just totally feeling in control. And I guess that only comes with, being in a hobby for a long time, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. I'm just thinking about like what you're saying, and I'm not saying this is a rule, but typically your older person like us, we're ancient, that's been in the hobby for a while. We ironically become I wouldn't say worse customers for the hobby, but we maybe buy less, we get sidetracked less and going, well, ultimately we're buying less. And obviously the hobby, there are people that earn their livelihoods in it, and money needs to be circulating. And I'm not talking about Games Workshop. I'm talking about, guys that write rules like Joe McCulloch, or, your very small scale miniature manufacturers. They really need the money. So there's this tension, isn't there, where like you either don't want to spend money or don't feel the need to, but at the same time you want to ensure that the folks that are making their living in the hobby are still supported. So I don't know the answer to that. It's kind of just amusing that.
Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard though.
But
It's hard. It's hard though, isn't it? And if I take a Song of Ice and Fire, just straight up, because I'm literally painting it right now. It's a game that I'm kind of is very much front and center. There's different methods that different organizations have used. Like you get it, right? They are an ongoing concern, right? They've created a rule set. They've created a kind of universe. They are creating a set of miniatures. They're creating things, and I get that. But it's about how you see the relationship, right? It's because I've bought the game, I bought some rules. In many ways, that transaction is over. In the same way that you buy Monopoly. So there's certain things that are kind of maybe potentially at odds with each other, and maybe I don't know. I've not thought about this really until you brought it up here, and again, I'm not trying to say that things are wrong and need to be fixed, or things that are right and things need to be amazing. I'm not saying that, but it's like I bought the rule set. That transaction is over. I bought some minis. That transaction is over. And I think if you think about like Netflix or something like that with streams, I think the world that some people want to create is this one of constant grazing or constant consumption or constant buying, right? Whereas like Netflix is a constant every month. It's that. iTunes is every month. People want you to pay every month. People want you to continue to pay because it keeps on making them money, right? And I get that. And I'm not saying that's negative at all. But there's the flip side of what you said there, is that you want to support the industry. I get that. You want to support good people doing good things. I totally get that too. But I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult, isn't it? There's no right answer. I don't owe anyone anything. If that kind of makes sense. It's like I don't owe anyone anything. If they create something that's great that I like and I want to know more of, and I have space physically on my shelf and also, mentally in my brain for a new game, then I got no problem getting it. I don't know, but it's hard. It's a hard balance to strike, I guess.
yeah, and again, just thinking aloud, like it doesn't that support doesn't necessarily need to be direct monetary transactions. Like, again, I've
No.
talked about this, the type of folk, the smaller scale rules writers, mini manufacturers. And if we're folks now that maybe feel we've got enough, we're not tempted by too much, we don't spend much money, I'd still like to think a lot of us are good advocates of the hobby. We're maybe bringing people in, we're introducing them to the world outside the Games Workshop. We're, making them aware of these companies or these rules writers or publishers. So in a way, we're still, I'd like to think, helping people in the industry, even if we're not regularly getting the wallet out anymore.
But the thing, if you think about small time rules writers, the kind of the cottage industry, which is what I appreciate the most. And when I say small times rule writers, that's no meaning to the rule sets. Some of the best rule sets that I've ever played are just written by a guy. And when I say like a cottage industry, that's not saying that it's lower quality because it's just a guy writing it. It's not that. But it's like, I like supporting those. But the people that write the rule sets that I usually like the most are just a guy that's written it. And just knowing that someone's playing their game, that's enough for them. So you might not be giving them extra 20 quid a month or whatever, but them knowing that you are supporting their game through you just playing it, as you mentioned, I think it's really important. But it is made a little bit more difficult with big organizations that are looking to make money out of it, which is great. I think the Song of Ice and Fire is made by Simon, cool mini or not. It's a big organization, on paper. But yeah, I think you're right. It's not just buying; it's spending the time playing it, and so really enjoying hobbying. Really enjoying every aspect of the hobby right now. Really enjoying playing. Really enjoying painting. Really enjoying, and it's been really good with the Song of Ice and Fire, especially because I've kind of been on the train since the very start. It was a Kickstarter campaign ages ago, maybe like 7 years ago. So I've got that, and it was a really good game. And I've just continued to buy one of each unit as the new units have come out for the army. So yeah,
it's good. I was just going to say it's good to see something like that. It's good to see somebody getting into something and keeping with it for a sustained amount of years and just gradually, sustainably adding to it. Rather than, you see the guy, again, he spunks like $1,000 on all his stuff and then he sells it like a year later because he's overwhelmed with it or doesn't like the game or whatever. So you've gone about it the right way.
I'd like to think so, but for me, the guy that goes and spunks $1,000 on it and then sells it off for 500 quid 2 years later, I mean, that's fine. If that guy's happy with doing it, then do that. That's no problem. But yeah, it has been really good because even just seeing the evolution of everything. So seeing the evolution of the miniatures, people won't be able to see, but I'm painting one right now, which is like one of the more modern ones, is significantly higher quality than the ones that they're first released with. And so that's been really good to see the journey of the miniatures, and they're easier to paint, they're easier to find the highlight places, they're easier to discern what the bits are. They're kind of, a few of the minis at the start are a little bit ropey in that regard. So it's been really good to kind of see the development of the whole process. And I'm not gonna lie, I ain't got any idea how popular it is worldwide or whatever. I don't really like to be plugged into that kind of worldwide community, really, because my own personal journey is much more important than getting those ideas skewed by somebody else. So yeah, it's really cool. And there's a skirmish version of the game that's supposed to be coming out in February time. So that'll be interesting to kind of see the skirmish variant and play that. So yeah, kind of rambling answer to the question, but yeah, as I kind of hobbied a lot and got more experience and done stuff that I've really liked and done stuff that I really haven't, just feel really strong with it, really competent in terms of how I want to approach my hobby, and that makes me feel really, really happy and secure. And I literally have no FOMO anymore. I think you're pretty much the same. I'm not affected by sales. I'm not affected by, Kickstarter campaigns or artificial deadlines. I'm kind of largely immune from kind of, these maybe less than savory kind of marketing techniques that people try and use on us from time to time. It's nice to get carried away on the wave sometimes, but it's also nice to be quite comfortable sat on the beach with an iron brew and your knotted hanky on your head, eh?
Yeah, there's a level of contentment you get when you realise, and I'm not saying that I know the absolute best gaming systems out there. I'm not saying I've necessarily found the absolute best miniatures, but I've got a confidence that I've encountered most of the best. And, the things that I've wanted from that, I've mainly been able to pick up, and I'm content. I think that's the best way to describe it. Like, I don't feel that there's a lot out there that I maybe need to still discover or that. So, again, not saying there isn't more things out there to find, but
it's more like it's knowing what you like, knowing what you want to pursue, knowing what you don't. And then there's a lot of things that I think some people that I still bump into are more enamored with the thought of doing the thing than actually doing the thing. And that's got nothing to do with the hobby. That's got nothing to do with the hobby at all. That's kind of like I wouldn't say human nature, but it's like how we have been conditioned to maybe act and feel and think. I don't want to go into conspiracy theories or anything necessarily, but a lot of people that I bumped into are more, I'd really love to paint. And you're like, well, paint then, right? And I totally get that you can't always paint, because I've just mentioned that I've slowed down with the hobby a lot. But it's like, you don't need to paint for a long time. You could just paint for 10 minutes. You could just paint for 5 minutes. So this thing, if you really want to do it, you'll find time for it, generally speaking. But playing, if I played A Song of Ice and Fire every week for a year, that's still only 52 games. That's not that many, really. It would be for one game, but if you think about the majority of us play more than one game. So if you divide that by 5, so there's 5 games that you're interested in playing, or 5 games that you want to play. That's you're getting down for like 10 games a year, which is not a lot. So it's like play games, paint, read the rule book, it's all that kind of stuff. Like, do it. Because when you actually do that stuff, you lose the need or the desire, in my opinion, to buy new things, because it's like, well, I've got this rule set that looks really cool and I want to play it. And that's only 10, like if you think about a campaign game, probably 10 to 12 games is your campaign, isn't it? So yeah, it's fun and it's interesting and it's awesome. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying starting to spin the wheels up a little bit faster, really enjoying playing more, really enjoying engaging more, and yeah, all the stuff. But yeah, so how about you? What have you been playing? You mentioned 15 mil there. Are you managing to get regular game time?
I wouldn't say super regular, but I am getting games in at least once a month. So I'm
Nice.
happy enough with that, to be quite honest with you. It kind of fits with my schedule doing that. So yeah, I've been playing. I mean, we did a couple of years of Rangers of Shadow Deep, which was brilliant. Frostgrave, stuff like that. Song of Blades and Heroes. I've been kind of working away on my own rule set now, which started off as just adapting another rule set, and I'm kind of I've completely revamped it just to suit my own sort of preferences as well. So I'm got a couple of games of that coming up in the next few weeks too. So I'm getting games which I couldn't have said like a couple of years ago. So I'm pretty happy with how that's going. Yeah.
How is it going in terms of organizing those games? Is it a nightmare to try and find a time? A family like comfortable and assisted you with doing meeting those ends?
It's not been too bad actually. It's not been too bad. I find a lot of the prep as part of the fun, in terms of like what we're going to play, how we're going to play it, what's going to be the scenario, what's going to be the miniatures. Like it is still like always me I'm bringing the terrain, I'm bringing the miniatures and stuff like that. So I know in an ideal world you have your opponent coming up and they've got their collection, but I'm not quite at that stage yet, but I don't mind. Like I say, I find that kind of part of the fun. So the setup time's not too bad. And there are ways that I can set a game up and I don't necessarily have to tidy it away that day. So that's a big help as well. If you're clock watching for getting tidied up. So that's a big help, yeah. Nice.
So you mentioned your own rule set there. Can you let us into any of the information and details about it? Or is it a fantasy setting? Is it a skirmish game? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah, it's both. It started off just me adding bits and taking bits away from Song of Blades and Heroes, which is definitely one of my favourite games. And it wasn't because I thought there was anything wrong with that game. It was just, like I say, there was a couple of wee things I wanted to add and remove and change just based on purely my own personal preference. So I initially created a sci-fi version of it. Song of Blades and Heroes is a fantasy game, so I created a sci-fi version, and now I've got a fantasy version too. And there's little, if any, difference between the two apart from their names. So the sci-fi one is called Star Squabble because it just sounds so petty.
Yeah, mate, I love that. Yeah. It's
the
great.
fantasy one is Mace of Spades. So,
mate.
So I mean, they nothing will happen with these. They're just for me to use, like playing games in real life, where they're a good fit for scenarios because they're very simple and the rules could take a back seat, I like to think, whilst the scenario and what you're trying to do and achieve is the main focus. So that was always kind of what I was after.
What makes a game good for you, mate?
Simplicity, but still a bit of I don't know if crunch is the right word, but you still need something there. I mean, ultimate simplicity would be boring, wouldn't it? But I mean, I can't put my finger on what it is about a game that appeals to me, but I'm certainly not a fan of overly complex games. I'm not the type of person that likes to flick through a book or that. At least, regularly. If you have to pick a book up once, that's fine. But if you're spending more time in the book than looking at what you're trying to achieve with your troops, then I think it's maybe that's a balance that I'm not quite happy with. So what about yourself?
Yeah, I think Alessio Cavatori does it so much better than me because he's wrote a number of successful rule sets and I have not. But I really agree with his mentality when he says you want to be spending more time thinking about what you want to do instead of what your units do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to say, like, imagine, I mean, you played a decent level of football, unlike myself. So imagine you're playing in the match and you're saying to the centre half, like, talk me through this offside rule again. Like, talk me, what's a foul throw? Like, you wouldn't obviously want to be doing that, would you? You're completely focused on, like, what you're trying to achieve rather than what are the rules of the game. So,
and that's when a game gets good. When you because you kind of spend the same amount. What I've found is that in general, you kind of spend the same amount of time playing anyway, right? But what you're spending your time during that game contemplating or doing, and going back to Song of Ice and Fire, I'm just going to play that today, so it's fresh in my mind, is that today it was our 5th game, and it's probably the 2nd game where we've actually been playing the game, not just learning the game. And that's when we're really taking the same amount of time that you would do anyway, but instead of thinking about what's this rule and what's that rule and what's this guy do and what this guy doing, we're starting to think about what's the best use of this unit's activation during this turn. And that's when games get really good. So I'm with you in terms of simplicity, especially with limited time. And I think there's a number of complex games that are around, and it's like, is that really what people actually want? And I feel sorry for games producers sometimes because maybe they don't get a lot of feedback from your average Joe. Maybe they only get feedback from people that are super into it. So the people that are super into it are like, oh, yeah, this is amazing. Oh, the depth of this. Oh, fantastic. Oh, I love reading the rule book. Oh, amazing. But then it's like, are you getting a true mirror image of what's actually going on with the majority of people that play this game? I kind of think that sometimes. But yeah, I'm with you. Simplicity, complexity where it's needed for sure, but simplicity kind of wins over, because with simplicity of rules or simplicity of processes comes complexity of thought, if that kind of makes sense. So it's like, what is the best way to use these guys? What is the best way to move here and spend the same amount of time? I believe that it is the same sort of time, but just thinking about the cool stuff. So A Song of Blades and Heroes, you've adapted. Have you thought of reaching out to the author of the original rule set and talk to them about, like, have you said, oh, hey, I really enjoy your game and this is what I've done? Have you done that yet? Would you consider it?
I don't know if that would sound a bit cheeky. Like, I know what you're saying with the wording there, but I wouldn't want that to sound like, oh, I fixed your game for you, because that's absolutely
No.
not what I think I've done. But no, I mean, if I tell you what, if I continue to play these rule sets for a long-term period, and I feel that, I maybe correct certain things, fix certain things, and say 6 months from now, I'm really, really happy with them, then yeah, maybe I would just give them a heads up. If nothing else, just a thank you for A, first and foremost, making a brilliant game, but B, give me something to kind of riff off and do my own thing.
Yeah.
So
That's cool, man.
That's it. But it's a cool experience. I've said before on the show, I just find it fun away from the table, whether that's painting or playing. This is something that you can do just out on a walk, or that you could just turn them over in your head. And what I have found, again, not claiming to be a games designer by any means, but when I've got the rules document in front of me, there's always this temptation of, oh, this sounds really cool. I'll add in this little caveat, like if this, then this happens, or maybe this troop type does that, and I'll add all these wee things in, and then the next time I play it, I forget about half these things, and I'm thinking, the reason you've made this game isn't to gradually just add more and more stuff in, it's to keep it as light and streamlined as possible. So I think it's always a good sign when you're playing and you forget stuff. It maybe shouldn't be there, even if it looks cool on paper.
Yeah, well, we've dabbled with making rule sets and different things. We've kind of like made a couple, and just for fun, and we kind of tinkered around with it. And I think the way that we referred to it when we were bouncing it between us was that you've got to make sure that the game is a tasty meal, but a tasty meal can be elevated with salt and pepper or spices, right? But too much of those things is gonna take away from the quality of the meal that's already there. So you've got to make the meal good quality, but it can be elevated somewhat with those added little bits, right? It's just a question of how and when and how much, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not something we've ever talked about publicly. This sounds very serious, but we did make a game a good few years ago, didn't we? And it got picked up by a publisher. It got basically made, and then they kind of it kept getting dropped down their queue, and they gave it back to us, didn't they? So we've just got this game sitting pretty much fully made, and we can't get out there, which is a real shame. So
we haven't talked about it publicly. But it's fun. But the thing is, I'm not too fussed if it never gets made, because we had fun making it. It was during COVID times, wasn't it? It was like during COVID time. I think you'd think Jesus visited you in the dream and said, Matthew, I'd like you to make a game. And then you emailed me and says that you'd had a dream about a game. That literally is what happened. Maybe not Jesus, but pretty close. You gotta go back to sleep and dream about making a game. And then we riffed for a bit and came up with a game that we really liked. And we were fortunate to get it signed up for a company. But it's kind of unfortunately fell by the wayside, and then semi-picked up by a couple of other people. But then as soon as it kind of came to kind of like, the walking us down the aisle, they kind of beat a hasty retreat, didn't they? So who knows? But the thing is, it was just a fun challenge. It was a fun opportunity. It was a good opportunity for us just to meet and chat and talk and share ideas. But we made two, not just one, two games. But it's just a fun exercise, just messing about in it, and using your brain. It's another flow state situation. Painting can get you into a flow state. Playing a game can get you into a flow state. List building can get into a flow state. But the same with thinking about rules tweaks and different things. It's the same thing. So it's an equally valid pathway in our hobby, right? If you want to explore it.
Our question of the month for October 2024 is: tell us about your local gaming club or hobby store. What makes it so special? How did you discover it? And what types of games or miniatures would we likely spot if we came along with you? Head on over to bedroombattlefields.com/voicemail to submit your clip, and I need them in by Thursday the 31st of October, Halloween. That link again is bedroombattlefields.com/voicemail. And now back to the show. Speaking of painting, you're obviously dabbing away right now, and I mean, because you've been doing this a long time, your painting is looking really sharp, and that, I mean, the main reason for that's just going to be sheer time practicing, isn't it? But like, what have you kind of learned the past few years with your painting? Anything you've kind of picked up, or any revelations or that?
No, no, no. I wouldn't say there's any revelations. I would say it's only the last kind of 6 weeks I've really started embracing the batch. Like a year before the last 6 weeks was more just kind of like picking up one mini, mooching around one mini, very slow, maybe a unit here and there, prepping for a game or something. But just the last 6 weeks specifically, I've been just for some reason I've just been like mad about the batch painting. But yeah, nothing. I mean, I'm nobody to kind of talk to anyone about quality or standards or anything like that. But just, I think the key thing the last like 6 weeks ago, I got a desk again, a specific painting desk. So I had one desk, one bigger desk, but I got a new computer, and then it was a painting station and a computer desk, and that stopped a lot of my painting. But then just before the school summer holidays, like June time, I went to IKEA and like just checked out like the IKEA's smallest table or something like that. And I found a way, because I work in like a little super tiny area. It must be not even 2 meters. I'm just measuring it now. I'm looking at it. It's like 2 meters wide, not even 2 meters wide, by about, again, 2.5 meters. So it's like maybe like 1 meter 75 wide by about 220, long. And I found a way, like Tetrised it, that I could take the big desk away and get two small desks and get back to a dedicated painting station. So in terms of what's happened recently, getting a dedicated painting station and getting somewhere where you can keep your minis has been essential for me to paint more. Right? That's like legit. And not everyone can have it, and it's not always possible. But that for me has been a big, big, big game changer. And it's something that I knew. It's something that I maybe just forgot. But so that's been really good. And then just again turning your brain off. Like I've painted probably 4 units of 12 guys in the last 6 weeks. To an okay standard, pretty good tabletop standard, nothing amazing, but just literally just turning my brain off. And even if you just do the boots, even if you just do the handles on the spears, even if you just do the faces, 15 minutes, try and paint 5 days out of 7, with at least one period where it's more than an hour. But yeah, just getting back to it really, just kind of, all the things that we know anyway, but just doing them, just actually doing them as opposed to thinking about them.
You're talking there about batch painting. What does batch painting mean to you then?
So batch painting is where you paint in a unit. So the Song of Ice and Fire guys are units of 12. Star Wars Legion guys are units of 6. But I'm painting 3 units at the moment. So I'm painting 2 units of infantry, so that's 24 guys, and then 1 unit of cavalry, which is 4, so that's 28 individual miniatures. And just trying to find commonalities between, like, so the 2 units that I'm painting, if infantry, they are from the same Game of Thrones house, from House Mormont, so their color scheme is similar. So just mooching through, like doing all the greens, doing all the leathers, doing all the boots, doing all the metal plate, but then also using the cavalry as like a palette cleanse, because their paint scheme is radically different. So you can see this, but other people can't. Maybe my camera's a bit bright, but like the challenge for the cavalry is like I decided to paint white horses. So whenever I'm getting a bit bored of doing the same color or the same unit, I'm changing direction and thinking about how do I paint a white horse, or how do I paint certain things. So the cavalry is a very different unit, which helps to break up monotony. So yeah, that's what I would consider to be batch painting, I guess. But I don't know. But that's the thing as well. I'm weird, like because I don't like these days. I don't go online. I don't go online for paint tutorials. I don't go online to connect to an online community. I feel a bit like a hermit, but I actually really like that. if that makes sense. So, I mean, that's how I define a batch paint, but I've got no idea if that's like an industry standard definition of batch. Would you define a batch like that? Like, how would you define a batch paint?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much. I guess I would maybe go smaller chunks at a time. I mean, are you literally getting through like 28 in one go? I know it's not an instant thing, but like, would it be 28 sets of boots, so on?
Yes, that's exactly how I do it. So I shift my camera for you, so you can see that I've got that's the unit. That's one unit. There's two units there. Yeah, one's in the bases and one's not. But yeah, doing all the same thing on those 28 guys. So like if they've got green tabards on, I'm going through and I'm doing all the green tabards, and then they've got the some maces. So I'm going through and I'm doing all the wooden shafts on all the maces. I'm just doing the same thing. Bang, 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 bang. And with the A Song of Ice and Fire minis, there's usually 4 poses. So there's 12 guys, 4 poses. So that works out quite nice, actually, because 4 poses is 3 guys with the same pose. The first one, you're learning about it and figuring out where it goes. Second one, you're getting better at it. And then the third one, you're starting to get a bit bored. So it actually works out really, really nice for me for the batch painting, because, you're still painting the shaft of a mace, but by the third, same shaft of the mace, you're moving on to a different shaft of the mace. So it works out quite nice.
When you get to the last guy, you know his shaft really well, even though you've just met.
Yeah. I know the shapely shaft. But yeah, so that's but I don't know why, because there's times where I've really not enjoyed batch painting. There's times where I've really not enjoyed it, but I don't know what it is right now. I'm just really enjoying that process of just repetition. And I guess it's because I'm starting to really get back into painting now after slowing down a lot for family reasons and not having desk space, as I mentioned. I've always painted. I've never stopped. I've always continued it. It's just the speed of it. And I just seem to have pivoted from wanting to do singular models, not even to a better level, just to do singular models where I was struggling maybe, or chunking through one guy for some reason. Now I'm just really enjoying the batch. And I think probably as I verbalize it, because I don't really talk to many people about this sort of stuff, maybe it's because I'm just feel like I'm reestablishing my skill level and reestablishing my competence level and reestablishing my confidence, if that kind of makes sense. So the guys that I've been painting, the normal painting stuff, if they've all got these tabards on, some of them have got creases in certain areas and some of them have got creases in other. So you can probably see that, other people can't. But, there's a guy that's got certain creases in certain places and a guy who's stood up straight and doesn't really have many creases at all. So it's the competence and confidence of finding where to paint, how to paint, gradient changes from the shadows into the mid-tone and then to the highlight. It's just been fun. And it's kind of like second time round as well in some ways, because I think I mentioned it then. It's not a criticism of anybody or anything, but I'm really enjoying just not being plugged into any sort of online community really, other than the Paint All of Me Discord, which still exists. It's just when first time round in the hobby, when I was getting super into it, I really wanted that online connection. I really wanted that online kind of fellowship. But now I really don't. I really enjoy just thinking about it myself in the same way that you go for a walk and think about rule sets or rule tweaks. I really enjoy just thinking about that myself without looking at a paint tutorial, even though I know that my painting could be better if I did watch a tutorial. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so much good advice out there, so many good ideas, good techniques that, maybe you could employ them all, but on the other side, just honing in on what you enjoy, what you feel you're good at, what you're able to improve yourself. Again, there's a lot to be said for that as well, isn't there? You mentioned Paint All the Minis there. Have you never been tempted to get back on the podcast horse? I mean, your show was a really influential one on me. Certainly when I got back in the hobby.
I thought you were going to say on the country, but no, on yourself, on you. Yeah, cool. No.
Yeah. Which is a lot more mundane, but you'll take it.
I was just about to say, no, mate, I disagree with it. It's not influential. But then you said on me. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah. But so I actually checked in with it. So they're all still up there. They're all still kind of available for everybody to go and listen. And I actually checked in start of this week, actually. I haven't looked at it for ages. But it's still getting like 1,000 downloads like a week if you listen to the statistics. But I guess on that website, maybe they are going to tell you that it's getting all these downloads, because that kind of, if you logged in and you got 0 downloads, you might think, no one's listening to it. I might jack this off. But so even if you take away maybe like 50% because their website wants you to feel nice about yourself and continue to subscribe to their service. I'm very, very pessimistic today. I'm sorry. But have I ever thought about getting back into it? Yeah, for sure. I still fundamentally, the reason why I wanted to do the podcast still exists. It still exists. I really enjoy listening to people's stories. I really enjoy figuring out how we all got here, and I think that the reason that we exist as humans is to share our stories and to share the things that we are excited about. And that doesn't need to be painting minis or playing games. It could be anything. Like if I see a guy playing a trombone on a street corner and he's having a great time, I want to listen to him playing the trombone. And then maybe if it's appropriate, I'll be like, mate, that's amazing. Thank you for playing the trombone. How did you start playing the trombone? So for me, the reason that I exist, in my opinion, as a human being, is to just share people's love and share people's passion for stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I visited Italy during the summer, and what I loved about the Italian culture is the celebration of beauty. It's going to go very deep. We've had pessimism. We're going into depth now. But I went to Italy, and what I really appreciate about their culture that I witnessed was the celebration of beauty in whatever form that took. And that, so like, it might be like my kids were playing on the beach and some old lady just stopped and I overheard what she was saying, and she was just saying, your daughters are beautiful. And they just celebrated that beauty of youth. And then equally that could be food. And you get like a bowl of pasta, and we stayed over at a bed and breakfast, and the owner of the bed and breakfast was like, oh, hey, like, why did you come to Italy? And one of the reasons we said was for the food. And he was like, oh, and he gave me this big manly kind of shoulder slap, and he kind of grabbed my bicep and was like, good. and then he was like, right, you need to go to this restaurant then. And so he told us to go to this restaurant, and even more, he booked a reservation for us, and we went to this restaurant, and he's like, you need to try this food. And so he gave us a list of food that we tried, and then it was amazing. And we had quite a grumpy waiter. And then what broke the ice, because we were trying to speak Italian, but we were new. We'd never been to Italy before, really, and we were learning some of the language, and we weren't really great at speaking the language. But then he came over and he said, "How's the food?" And we didn't lie. We were telling the complete truth. We went, "It's amazing. It's brilliant." Obviously, this is in Italian. We're like, "Bellissimo," and then his face just changed and cracked, and he knew that he was so happy. So, do I want to get back into the podcast? Yeah, I do. I think more people have got stories to tell, and I really enjoy listening to those stories. And obviously, I would hope maybe even if it's only just one person, other people like that, because it celebrates our humanity. It celebrates the beauty of why we're here. But it's just kind of like tucked away a little bit, because it's like, how many more people can I speak to? Like, how many more interesting things can I say? Because I'm not the interesting person. I'm not the interesting person. Like the guest is the interesting person. I don't like it. Like I like talking to you, but I don't like that we record it, because I don't think any of the things that I'm saying are particularly interesting. If that kind of makes sense, it's the person that I'm speaking to that's the interesting part. So yeah, like part of it is time. Still, it's like it takes a lot of time to not only record it, but to organize when you're going to speak to the people. Then there's a time difference, and then there's also the editing. Believe it or not, there's a certain amount of post production that needs to happen. And then it's also like who could I speak to? Like that's another thing. Like who is interested enough to speak to? Not that there isn't, there are, but it's finding those interesting people. And then the final kind of piece of the jigsaw that's missing at the moment is that I just don't want to be like promoting stuff or feel like I'm promoting stuff, or it's like the back end of the shows that I was recording, and I totally get this and it's totally fine, but it's like people only really want to come on to talk about their product, which I totally understand, but that's exactly what I don't want. So yeah, would I like to do it again? For sure, because people are interested. What form would that take? Don't know. Who would I speak to? Don't know. But I know that I definitely don't want to be promoting anything at all. Not that I've got any beef with anybody that does do that sort of stuff. It's just not really me. I don't want to. I've tried those things, I tried the Patreon thing, tried some advertisements, tried, some endorsements and different things, but I just really don't really want to do that at all. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, selfishly, I would love to see or hear it back, because I really enjoy the show. I still, believe it or not, sometimes will dip into the back catalogue and grab a couple of them. You got some really, really high profile guys on, but like you're saying, kind of some of the best conversations, not that these conversations weren't great, but some of the best ones were just normal people, like ordinary people, ordinary hobbyists. There was some really good conversations there too, but making a podcast is hard. And I think some people do, work in the podcast industry, and some people do start podcasts a bit off the cuff and naively, and they maybe don't realise that it takes a lot of work to not just launch it but sustain it. All the different things that you've mentioned there, even things like if you're doing an interview podcast and you have to seek out guests, that's a challenge as well. It's a challenge to get in touch with people. It's a challenge to organise the recording. Even though I've been doing audio, got a degree in sound production, I still have a lot of problem with the technology working properly, equipment setting up. So it's there's all sorts of barriers in the way. It can be done, but it's like you're saying, it's not a decision that you should take lightly.
No, but also take it lightly. Don't let it stop you. Like, don't put a barrier in front of yourself. You know what I mean? It's I remember recording my first one was just me and a laptop in a donut shop, I think. And it's rubbish. I like to think the conversation is somewhat interesting, but the quality is rubbish. And I'm not saying that the quality is good at all in any of the other ones. I think it gets a little bit better. But start it. But that's another thing. In middlemen, there's so many middlemen everywhere. Just middlemen. It's like all people always just looking to take money off you for nothing. And it's like really annoying.
Like hosting or that? Or?
Yeah. Because there's ways to host for free, but they're hard to find. But there's so many different hosting things that are like, it's only $10 a month. It's like, what am I paying $10 a month for? And then again, there's so many people that are offering advice, which is helpful advice. And it's like, you need to get a Blue Yeti mic. And it's like, no, you don't. You've got a microphone in your laptop. I'm speaking to you now. I've just got my headphones. I've got some Bluetooth headphones. I'm just talking to you that, and it's okay quality. So it's very confusing. It's a very crowded space, I find, and that jaded me, and still does jade me. That it's very confusing because people are always looking to stick their hand in your pocket and pull out a fiver, pull out a tenner, and that's annoying.
Finding one of them in my pocket.
50p.
I mean, I was talking about not starting lightly and that, but I literally did with this show. Like I believe this episode is episode 99. So if my maths are correct, the next episode will be 100. I should have kept you for that. But I started this podcast. I didn't have a name in mind or anything. I just thought like there are a couple of people and a couple of topics that I want to have conversations and record, and I just kind of took the approach of I'll just see what happens. And what's happened, fortunately, is I've really enjoyed it, and it's something that I'm glad I did.
That's it. You've got to enjoy it yourself on your own level, and you've got to get something out of just recording it. And if you're not getting something out of recording it, there's no point. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it, because it's like, I think I mentioned it before, is that I'm not the interesting part of this. I'm not the interesting one. I'm not the one with anything of note to say. All I'm doing is I'm giving the platform to somebody else because I want to listen to them. I want to listen to that person. I want to hear what they say, right? And that's great. and I just like talking to you. So I've got something out of this because I just enjoy talking to you. I've got no idea if anyone else is going to be interested in it. But it's a very crowded space, and it's a very confusing space, and it's a very conflicting space. But yeah, I'd love to do more. But I'd like to do more of the ones that, like, I let a quick look at the downloads and the ones that have been earlier this week. I mentioned before. I look over the ones that are the most popular, the most downloads over the last 6 months. And there's a couple of typical ones, like there's a Duncan Rhodes one. Was second top, but what was actually really surprising was the sustainable gaming ones. The 3 sustainable gaming ones, they were like 2, 3, and 6 of the most downloads over the last 6 months. And then also the chats that I had with Joe Veltri, where we just goofing around a little bit. So I'd like to potentially do more of those, but what people maybe
the bottom one.
I didn't even look at that one, to be honest with you.
So low down, no. You didn't see it.
I wouldn't even know which one that was. I can't remember off the top of my head which episode, but like, though, I'd like to do those ones, where there's it's not just a person, it's not just an interview with somebody. You kind of talking, like the sustainable gaming ones I really enjoyed doing those, but there was a lot of preparation that went into those. There was a lot of writing beforehand, and they were a lot more time, a bigger time sink to kind of create the structure, to lay out your points and then to kind of discuss them. I'd like to do more of those, but again, it's time. You're encountering time. And then it's also, again, the kind of imposter syndrome where it's like, I just don't think I've got anything that's that interesting to say. It's much easier just to hide behind a guest and be like, it's nothing to do with me. It's all to do with you. But yeah, I don't know, mate. But I like talking. Here, go on.
I was just going to say, not to divert us too much, because I'm conscious of time. I've only got a wee while left, but I think one of the big beauties and strengths of podcasting is it's almost becoming the last sanctuary for long form content online. I know we've still got books and stuff like that, but
yes.
If you think about the way culture's heading with content now, it's like, humans have only got a 3-second attention span. You need to do a 4-second video and get all your content in there. And I noticed that, again, now that I'm 40, I'm what's classed as a grumpy old man, and I've realised that people don't even wear headphones now. So I've noticed that you're maybe in the pub or that, and somebody's just sitting on their phone, no headphones, and it's just 5-second bursts of shit that are coming out their phone like that. I think it's TikTok or something. So it's you just get the start of these obnoxious clips, just circling through them. Not, again, the headphones is the big issue. They could do what they want, but I shouldn't have to hear it. But again, that's where content's at for a lot of people now. There is a place for short form content, of course there is, but I like podcasts because you could really get in depth on a topic, and there's nuance and there's context, and I think it's important that we have that.
I agree with you entirely on that. Yeah, and so that's the thing with doing an interview with somebody, is that it's their expertise and their experience that you're hearing and not mine. Does that kind of make sense? And I like that. Like if you speak, you mentioned Joe McCulloch before, and he's a kind of a mutual kind of friend between us. Like, you're listening to his hard-earned, hard-won, and refined experience over many years. Does that kind of make sense? So you're not just listening to a knobhead who's got a new iPhone, right, for 5 seconds. You're listening to an expert in their field who's thought about this and has done many things in his field for many years, right? That's what you're listening to, and that's where the value lies. That's what I kind of mentioned before about me. I don't feel like I have any value to add to these things. I've obviously got an opinion, but who the fuck cares about that? But it's amazing that we live in this world where we can give so many people a voice. But you also start to realize that maybe we just because we could be shouting, does that mean that we should? But I don't know. But you don't want to be a grumpy get, like you mentioned there about, for me, TikTok and all that kind of stuff. For me, TikTok and that, I read all the time, and I've got a Kindle, and there might be the most amazing book that is the total right book for me, and I would read it and it'd be the most amazing book, right? But they have this thing on the Kindle store where it's like they have this strap line where it's like, TikTok made me buy it. And I'm just like, I'm instantly like, no. It's like, even if that's the best book, even if that's the best book ever, I'm not buying it if that's what your strapline is. It's like, what's the title of the book? Who's the author? And then what's the synopsis of the book? But then I feel like I sound like a miserable old get. But it's like, I'm not going to buy a book just because it says TikTok made me buy it. It's like, no, no. I don't know. So yeah, it's like it's hard. I wanted to, like, I think long form content, man. I'm with you on that, like, for sure. An hour long podcast, an hour long whatever. It enables you to get into it. It enables you to get to know somebody. You do a deep dive into something. It's not always appropriate to listen over that amount of time. But yeah, like, it's just not wanting to be part of the perceived problem. But yeah, man, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. And people, I don't know. Again, like I said, I'm not really super into YouTube anymore. We're watching stuff, but one of the reasons why I'm not into YouTube so much anymore is that I would watch some content, and it was apparent that the person that was talking didn't know what they were talking about. They not that I knew better, but like, if you take a rule set that I know, like Frostgrave, for example, I would watch somebody doing an overview of a Frostgrave book, and I would just pick up so many things that were not the case. But you wouldn't know that unless you were deep into Frostgrave. Does that make sense? And then I felt bad because it was like, this guy's wrong. But then I felt bad for the author too, because it's like, he's doing his book a disservice here. And then you root back to it and you realize that I've got to put a video out every week, and it's got to be this amount of time. And it's like, yeah. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I want to talk to people, like, going back, taking it back to the original positive thing. It's like, people are interested, aren't they? Yeah. And people are interested, and listen to people talk about stuff that they're interested in is interesting. So is there going to be more? Don't know. Do I want them to be? Yeah, but I like listening to all sorts, and it doesn't need to be me. It's, you do just as well as I do. It's not a me thing, but I don't know. Do you listen to any other hobby podcasts?
Yeah, couple. Yeah, Crown of Command, I think, is my main one.
Crown of Command,
Trapped Under Plastic, I really like as well. Rule of Carnage. So they're three really good ones for different reasons. But just for me, it's content first. I mean, there has to be a level audio quality there, but the content, relevant content. So I do manage to get those, and I've not got as much listening time as I used to because I don't commute anymore. But when I'm painting and that, I've always got a podcast on.
I think if I bumped into somebody who I had a really decent crack with, who maybe shared some values and wanted to put in they wanted to mirror the level of effort that I wanted to put in, I think that'd be different, because it does get quite lonely, as you'll know. You do face a lot of rejection, and you do a lot of work with seemingly no feedback whatsoever. And not that I'm extrinsically motivated where I need a pat on the head and a slap on the arse, and get told that I'm a good boy. I don't necessarily need that. But, if I did bump into somebody who you've got that connection with, that you could have a decent crack with, like Joe Veltri was a good one. Like, I don't even know where he's gone. I'm not on Facebook anymore. I'm not on any social media anymore. So I know that he went off Facebook too, but you got a really great guy who's really fun, really bubbly, really like interacting with, but, just lost that connection. And like, I'd like to do loads more stuff with you, but you're always busy, and I totally get it. You say that when you get home from work, you look at a computer screen all day, and then when you get home from work, you don't want to necessarily, go on the computer again, which I totally respect. So if there's someone that I bumped into that kind of shared values and shared a little bit of work ethic, not that I'm saying that I work, crazy hard, but, someone that's reliable, then yeah, I would like to do a little bit more. I'd like to write some stuff, I'd like to write more, because I think I've talked to you about this, because you're involved in a kind of podcast industry to a certain degree, is that I just kind of saw what I was doing, and I knew what it was and I knew what it wasn't, and I wanted to do better, but I didn't have the time to invest to do better in it. And I felt like at certain times I was doing a disservice to the guests because they deserved better, and I wanted to offer better, and I thought, if I can't offer better, then don't do it. There's an element of that as well. But yeah, I don't know, but people are interested, and it's interesting hearing their stories.
Massive thanks to Dan for coming on the podcast. Hopefully we could hear a lot more from him in future, whether that is on his own show, Paint All the Minis, or whether I could tempt him onto this show on a semi-regular basis. So in terms of my own hobby progress, I thought I'd keep this for the end so we could just dive into the content. But I've been getting through a lot. I've just finished a small group of zombies for Stargrave. They were official Stargrave. I know Stargrave's miniature agnostic, but you get the official range on North Star. So I'd got these like sci-fi space zombies, if you like. And I've just finished them up. Very simple colour scheme. Not a lot of colours at all on them. Quite bright green skin in contrast with just a beige sort of clay colour on the rest of their clothes. And they've gone into my, I've been over the last few years building this sort of sci-fi undead warband. It started off, intended for Stargrave, but obviously there's a lot of other great sci-fi skirmish rules systems out there as well. So I've added them to the crew there, and I'll put a link in the show notes to the full article on them. I've got photos and everything if you're interested in taking a look, and also talk about where I picked up each miniature as well. There was a few different miniatures companies that went into putting that warband together. So in other news, I feel like I'm going into what I could only describe as a bit of hobby hibernation at the moment, and I don't mean that's because I'm planning on stopping doing anything. It's just that at time of recording, we're into October now, and October going into the 9-month winter that we get in Scotland, I'm just starting to realise like there really won't be much opportunity in the coming months to do any priming outside because, either it's raining, or if it's not raining, it's really cold or it's really windy. Like the conditions that you need to go out and prime some miniatures with a spray can almost don't exist for a good chunk of the year in Scotland. So I started to panic about that, and I was thinking, what stuff could I be working on over the winter, and what am I going to need to base, because I've got this weird system where I base them, then I prime them. So I've got this big pile in front of me now. I've got 2 units of Goblin Wolf Riders at 15mm, 2 units of Orc Archers at 15mm. I've got a fleet of ships for Man of War or Armada. I've got a Chaos Spawn that's going into my Nurgle Warband. I wanted to paint up a warband of Oathsworn miniatures. They're all like rabbits and hares, and I've got a big sort of raven sorcerer guy as well. And then I've got a small warband of Space Raiders, like Chaos Space Marines from Nightmare miniatures, which are fantastic. And I've just been putting them off and putting them off because, to be quite honest with you, I never feel like I'm really a good enough painter to do these justice yet, but I've just had a word with myself and I'm going to crack on and see what happens. What's the worst that could really happen? So they're all getting based and primed at the moment, and that's a kind of process that I'm trying to get through as quickly as I can, because I could literally see the weather turning outside. There's not going to be much opportunity at all to nip out there with a spray can. Also, the wife wants AstroTurf out the back instead of the old Manji chips that are there, so it could well be that my spray priming days are numbered anyway. I just want to say a thanks to Timeless Gaming in the Discord for sending me some 10mm dwarfs as well. They'll go really well with my 15mm forces. I know I said 10mm, but they're actually they're pretty big for 10mm, and they're also dwarfs, so there's that weird thing of they're big but they're small. So they'll fit in really well with the goodies army that I'm building in 15mm. So it was really kind of to offer to send them to me. I really do appreciate it, and I promise to put them to good use. So on the gaming front, I've got a wee solo game set up that I've been tinkering away with. The initial idea came from John Lambshead's excellent sci-fi skirmish scenarios book. There's a good section at the end of that book that focuses on solo play, and one of the guides there, one of the scenarios, there's a good way of kind of being able to set up your force at one side of the table, a small warband, and you've got the opposing force, the NPCs, coming down the table towards you. And it's a D6 system for their movement, so, they're either moving towards you, or a bit to the left, or a bit to the right, or they're going to try and charge. I've just adapted this slightly, and the idea is that, I'm going to have basically like a sort of vanguard or mercenary group that are holding off an attack I've used skeletons, I've used Chaos Marauders here. They're basically holding off an attack, allowing a village to evacuate or something of that ilk. And so you've got these bad guys coming down the table at you, and you're just trying to hold them off for as long as possible. And you can have a dice score, at the end of each turn you roll a d6 and add that to a cumulative score. And you can have a kind of target number there. You could aim for, can I hit 20, can I hit 40 on that dice roll. There's a bit of luck involved there as well, obviously. It's all down to the dice rolls, but that cumulative score gives you a target of how long you're really aiming to hold these enemies off for, and that simulates what's going on off the table, the imagined evacuation of a building or something like that. So I did kind of adapt that movement system. I've kept a d6, but what I'm doing with these NPC bad guys, I'm rolling both a d6 and a d10 at the same time. The d6 will dictate what they're going to do, and the d10 will dictate the number of inches that they're going to move, if they're going to move. That's assuming they will. So you roll a d6. If you roll a 1, the opponent, the NPC, remains in place, so they obviously won't move there. On a 2, though, they advance 45 degrees to the left. On a 3, it's 45 degrees to the right. On a 4, they advance straight towards your table edge. On a 5, they advance towards the nearest model, the nearest of your models, the friendly models. And on a 6, they advance towards your nearest model at double speed. So like I'm saying, that's the d6, and the d10 gets rolled along with that. So for example, you roll an 8 there, they're going to move 8 inches. And if you were to roll an 8 and a 6 on the d6, they would move 16 inches. Straight towards your nearest model. So I know with these kind of, for lack of a better term, AI systems, they've got their flaws and limitations, but I'm finding that pretty fun. Like it's nice and easy, and it's a good wee challenge to, like I say, at the end of each turn when everyone's moved, you could also roll that other dice that keeps that cumulative score and set yourself a wee challenge for how long you're going to be holding them off. And ultimately, from their point of view, from the NPC's point of view, they're just trying to escape your side of the table edge, and that's the point where you would consider your vanguard kind of breached. So there's that. I'm playing away with that, and I'm also hoping to get a wee game with Robert tomorrow at time of recording. We're going to do some Star Squabble, and we're using the bioweapon scenario from the aforementioned Sci-Fi Skirmish Scenarios book. Final thing to mention on this episode is the question of the month. I wanted to hear all about your local hobby shop, your gaming club, anything like that. The place that you go to partake in your hobby, if you're lucky enough to have such a place. Tell us all about it, how you discovered it, what sort of games you play there, what the people are like, and what keeps you going back. As always, you can submit your clips at bedroombattlefields.com/voicemail. Right, that's everything for this episode of the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. The next episode is going to be episode 100. I'm giving nothing away about that, but I'm sure it's one that you're going to enjoy. So make sure you're subscribed or following the podcast on your app of choice so you don't miss that one. See you then.